Welcome to Standard Chartered Money Insights, a podcast series by Standard Chartered Bank that brings you market views and insights on the go.
Welcome to Standard Chartered Money Insights. I'm Audrey Goh, Senior Cross-Asset Strategist from the bank. Today on part 2 of this episode, we shall be continuing our discussion on inflation and the investment implications under different inflation regimes. Joining me today is Nguyen from the Portfolio Strategy team. So Trang, you've done a lot of work on inflation and various asset class performance under different inflation regimes. Can you walk our listener through what are some of the regimes we have seen historically and what are your key takeaways?
Thank you, Audrey, for having me. Now, inflation. Inflation is never easy to predict. So, as part of our recent publication, we actually look at all the historical inflation regime from a low to moderate to high and very high regime, and we also discussed how different asset classes perform in this scenario from a more holistic guidance. Now, our current view is that the spike in inflation should be transitory before tapering off, meaning that the result on a scenario of low to moderate inflation regime scenario should be from this study should be most relevant. A couple of findings that probably worth highlighting to the audience here. Now, the low inflation regime tend to be positive for most risk assets such as equities and as well as gold. Here, they also show a very strong, clear outperformance compared to other safer assets such as bond. Within equities, historically, US and Asia and Japan equity was the top performer in this scenario. Now, this intuitively makes sense because these periods tend to include post-recession recovery phases where we normally see monetary policy are accommodative and interest rates are typically low. Now, for the same reason, we're likely to see that the search for yield would be strong, and hence this environment should be supportive for income strategy to perform well. Now, when inflation move from low to moderate ranges of about 2 to 3%, this often the period where we see further progression into recovery phases of economic cycle, where usually you should see growth started to pick up, earning improving, and broad commodity prices was higher as well. So broadly speaking, in this environment, cyclical assets tend to do well. We saw that most cyclical sector equity across the region have outperformed defensive sectors. In particular, technology was a star performer here, thanks to the a strong secular growth. Now, we also notice here is that a clear shift in leadership in performance from developed market to emerging market asset. And this is evident in both equities and bonds. Emerging market equities outperform their developed market peers significantly, and EM dollar bond, also local bond, did better than other DM credit bond as well. So yes, if investor expect inflation to pick up slightly from here to a moderate level, and growth remains supportive, probably they can consider tilting their portfolio toward more pro-cyclical as well as EM asset.
Thanks, Trang. So basically, in a low to moderate inflation scenario, still pretty much risk on with a preference for some of the more cyclical assets, as well as income still being able to deliver decent performance. But I think, what about high or very high inflation regimes? I think that's the area where many investors seems to be concerned about in terms of the impact to their overall portfolios and what can they do if they're expecting inflation to move markedly higher from where we are today or to a much higher sustained plateau where inflation is concerned.
Yep. So our study actually showed that when inflation moved higher to more than 3%, generally, as most people fears, equity performance across region got hit. But this is a scenario where we saw that real assets such as private equity, private real estate, commodity deliver some of the best performance. The dollar tend to do well here as well, thanks to its counter-cyclical nature. Now, interestingly, our study showed that high quality bond actually show positive return in this period. There can be two reasons behind this soon to be counterintuitive observation. One is that in a very high inflation regime, investors likely to favor developed market high quality bond for their safe haven nature. The other reason is that, as you know, bond market tend to respond quite quickly. So it's possible that going into this high inflation regime period, bond yield has already risen significantly. So it can lead to strong performance subsequently. So in short, if investors have a view that inflation is here to stay and heading to a higher level persistently, maybe they can consider start building exposure to real assets, as mentioned earlier, as well as maintain a small allocation to quality bond um, for their portfolio.
Great. Thanks, Trang. And that's all for today's episode of Standard Chartered Money Insights. If you would like to learn more or read our publication, please do visit our website at sc.com under Market Insights. As a reminder, if you enjoyed our discussion, please do rate and review us whenever you get a podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to Standard Chartered Money Insights, a podcast series by Standard Chartered Bank. For more details on the latest market insights, subscribe to Standard Chartered Money Insights.